And looks like we are live with Jalil Major Hackett. What's going on, champ? How are you?
How you doing, man? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Listen, I'm gonna get this right out the way because I know people was hitting you. So I ain't here to be phony. Yeah, I had something to say about the injury. You know, I started asking all my guests, is it common to get in the sauna on a Thursday for a Friday? Yes, I certainly didn't think that was something that's common, but since it happened to you, I've interviewed dozens of fighters, and it comes to find out a lot of people use the sauna even one day before the weigh-in. Um, yeah, man, walk us through that. And I wanted to get that out the way just in case, people send people clips. I don't want you thinking I'm some phony here. Yeah, I definitely had something to say about that. I didn't understand it. I figured why you need the sauna. I had interviewed Gary Russell Jr. a long time ago when he lost to Lomachenko, and he told me that was the reason he lost because he got in the sauna the week of the fight. So I just figured that was a no-no. Interviewing plenty of fighters since that happened to you, some do say it's a no-no. Some don't like being in the sauna that close to a fight because they feel flat. So yeah, I wanted to get that out the way, man. But if you want to take us back to that moment and let us know exactly what happened since it was such a big thing in your career because it caused you to lose a fight.
It was one of those situations where I do the sauna the week of the fight because it's low impact. A lot of guys prefer to do a lot of running that week, and the running takes away from your legs. I'm at the point where I'm fighting 10, 12 round fights. You don't want to do anything that's going to overexert your body other than the night of the fight when you have to fight. So I was just getting the last. I think I was like 8 ounces or a pound over. I'm like, I'm gonna just do the sauna, to get it off, and I'll probably be able to. If I get off more than a pound, I'll be able to eat the night before weigh-in. So, it's a situation of I'm coming out of the sauna to. I'm about to take a shower, check my weight. I probably would have been good, and I just would have called it a night until the next day. I slipped.
You breaking up, champ. I think it's because you're driving.
Yeah, I think I'm in a bad spot. You can hear me?
I hear you now.
All right. So where you lose me at? I don't want anybody to have no misconstrues of the story.
You were just saying you came out the sauna and you slipped.
Yeah. So I'm coming out of the sauna. I'm about to change my clothes, shower and everything, and I slipped because it's puddles in the sauna from me sweating. So I come out the sauna, I slip, and I landed like on the ball of my ankle. And I actually went down in the sauna. If it wasn't for the few dudes that was in there, shit, my ass would have been laid out in the damn sauna. So yeah, no, I got helped out of the sauna. I went to the hospital. My shit was big as a golf ball. So they was like, yeah, you ain't fighting a soul tomorrow.
Hmm.
If it was up to me, shit, I would have been like motherfucking Kevin McHale when he played for the Celtics. Tape this bitch up. But they was like, nah. So, they told me nah. My team told me nah. So, I was like, shit, you gotta pull out.
Yeah, man. So I thought maybe you was in there shadow boxing. Not that I know anything about being in the sauna, not that I shadow box in the sauna, but I'm like, you either sit in the sauna and you just sweat, or maybe because he a boxer, he wanted to help the weight get off, so you shadow boxing
Nah.
in there.
I ain't even gonna lie to you. I remember this shit like it was yesterday. I was in the sauna catching up on Raising Canaan. And when it was time to
Okay.
get out the sauna, I got up. I was on like, how the sauna got multiple levels. I was on the top level. I got up and coming off the top level, that's when I slipped. It's like coming off like where I was sweating at, I came down wrong and I bust my ass. It was just a freak accident. You know, it is what it is though. So, yeah.
So your father introduced you to the sport at the tender age of 5. He used to be an amateur boxer, and he started your boxing career, correct?
Yes, sir.
How was that at 5? How did boxing become your thing?
Originally it wasn't really my thing. So like, I played football when I was a kid. So I used to have football practice, but my dad he trained pros. So like after practice, we would have to go to the fucking gym, and I'd just be in the gym, and I'm like, shit, I'm already in here. I might as well just like learn about it. So I would just always be in the gym, and when I was like a little bit before I turned 8, I told my dad, I said, you might as well, let me get a fight. I want to fight now. And he at first he was like, all right, cool, you could fight. He was like, you can't quit football, but you could fight. And so, I was playing football and I was boxing. And then, like, by the time I hit like 12, 13, I felt like I really had a better future in boxing than I did in football. Because I was like, shit, anything I want to do, I want to be the best. And I was like, shit, the likelihood of me becoming a pro boxer is more likely than it is for me to go to the NFL. So I said, shit, let me lock all the way in on boxing and see where I can go with it.
So is the welterweight division the division you plan on continuing the campaign, or do you see a move up?
It's something that I talked about with the team, and lately we've been weighing our options.
So nothing's definite just yet.
No, not yet.
Well, that welterweight division is starting to get pretty top heavy or name heavy, right? You got Devin just moved there, Ryan just moved there, Tio wanting the Boots fight. Is Boots there? Is he not? You know, where do you see yourself as a better fit for the welterweight division amongst those names with the Brian Normans and Devins and Ryans of the world, or do you see yourself with the Virgil Ortizes and the Bakrams at 54?
All right, so we have two sides to this coin. On one side you have 47, where like if you stay there, you have to win now because you all know I know I'm a big kid, and I'm growing. I'm only 22. People tell me I'm very big for the division. People say shit at 54 you will be a big 54. So at 47 that will be a situation of win now. Whereas at 54, I feel like I have more longevity there. I have time to grow into the division fully, and I can see myself being there for multiple years and giving myself the opportunity to win multiple belts. You know, because I'll have more time there because that would be a division that I'll be moving up to.
So obviously, you had the unfortunate setback um, in December of last year where you suffered your first loss against Jose Roman. And you were scheduled for that rematch, and that's when you got the injury. Is that something that's still on your mind, or is that something that you have to figure out once you figure out what division you're going to be in?
Step one is figuring out the division. Me, I don't like to just let shit slide. It was a fight that I thought I won, but we didn't get the decision. So it was my decision to go back for a rematch. My dad and the team was like, nah, we don't got to fight that guy. We can go a different route. But I pressed the action for a rematch. Like we all know, the rematch didn't happen because of the injury. So right now, like you said, first we have to figure out what division Jalil is going to be at. After we figure out the division, is then we take the next steps. I leave all of the figuring out what's what to my team, and when it's time to fight, I just make sure I'm my best self.
So how old were you exactly in 2019? I mean, it says you were 16, but I meant to say how big were you? Because obviously the internet is talking about a time where you sparred Tank Davis, and that gave you some recognition in front of the eyes of Calvin Ford. But you being a welterweight and 5'10", 11, I'm just wondering, when the hell were you Tank size?
Shit, I graduated high school in 2020, and everybody who knew me back then, everybody swore to God when I turned pro, I was gonna be fighting 135 or 140 because I was small. I didn't hit a growth spurt until after I graduated high school. I had a growth spurt in 2020. I went from 5'5" to 5'9".
Wow. Okay. How was that difficult as a boxer because you've been fighting in this lower division? Now all of a sudden, you jump up 2, 3 divisions and you have to fight bigger men.
No, it's all about adapting. I look at life. I look at boxing and life a lot the same. If you can't adapt, it's gonna you're gonna lose. And with this, I said, shit. If you can't adapt, maybe you need to find something else to do with your time. And so, I just made myself adapt.
Why do you think Eddie Hearn, the owner of Matchroom, called you a young, an old head on young shoulders?
He and I talked. Privately, we talked about a lot of situations so far since I've been with him and been with Matchroom. And he says, I like your thought process on boxing. And I asked him to elaborate on that. Because I was just curious. The older throwback fighters, you want to fight the best. You're not just cherry picking. You don't want to. It's not about the money thing. You just want to go out there and fight. And I was like, yeah, you kind of you spot on with that one. It's really not about I'm gonna fight these guys because they easier. I'm gonna fight this guy because he's easier. It's about, oh, y'all want to see me fight him or y'all think he's better than me? Let me fight him so I can show y'all he's not better than me. And then we just move on to the next guy.
Nah, for sure, man. Obviously, you got a lot of praise for that sparring session. Not too long after that, you signed to Mayweather Promotions. You stood with them 2 years, and you parted with Mayweather and linked up with Matchroom. Looking back on your decision, are you happy with the decision you made to part ways with Mayweather, or do you slightly regret it now that you see some of your older stablemen? Because it seems like right when you left, it's like you left, Ingram left, and then y'all caused Mayweather Promotions to be like, all right, damn, let's get the rest of these kids some fights before more people leave. Not to mention Robert Merriweather also left.
Yeah, I don't regret the decision. Everything that happens is for a reason. Coming to Eddie, my first fight with Eddie, I fought for the Continental Americas title. So, I'm overly thankful for that. Um, and it was a situation with Male Promotions where it didn't end on bad terms. When I told them that I wanted out, they had complete understanding of why I wanted out and, what my plans were, not just as a fighter, but in life. And I said, right now, it's best for me not to be with y'all. And, they was cool with that. Like, I can still call Floyd to this day. And even though Leonard isn't with Male Promotions, me and Leonard still talk often. You know, so yeah, it was a situation where, like, in order for me to grow, I had to grow elsewhere, and both parties understood that. So everything's cool.
Now, I understand you had, man, at least about 160 amateur fights. So turning pro at 18 wasn't technically Russian, but why did you turn pro at 18?
It was a situation where the only other option was to wait around until 2024, which was actually last year. The only other option was to wait around until 2024 to try and make an Olympic team, um, which the boxing politics, that isn't certain. Um, So I just said, why not get a jump start on my career now? Because, after, let's say I tried to make an Olympic team and I didn't make it, I would have been turning pro anyway. So it's like, why not turn pro now, get some fights under your belt, and be able to develop as a pro. So by the time, other guys are just turning, you already got your feet wet in the game.
What was that defining moment that made you realize boxing was going to be your destiny and that this was for you?
It was honestly when I realistically when I started to like get national notoriety. Like your first few times at some tournaments, you just there, but like when you've been to a nice amount of tournaments and you done won a nice amount of them, then it's like dudes expecting you to win these tournaments or Like you going and you hear like it's chatter. Like guys that came up in the amateurs know how the weigh-ins are. Niggas sitting at the weigh-ins, they like, oh shit, you gotta fight Jalil, bro. Like goddamn, just try your best. Like when you hearing shit like that, it's like, all right, I feel like I got a future in this sport.
Your first loss, obviously, to Jose Roman in December, it shocked a lot of us. We didn't expect that loss. Can you walk us through what happened exactly, and what did you learn in that fight, and how are you addressing those stamina issues moving forward, or do you not believe you had a stamina issues? Because you seen the writers in the internet, they pointed to that. They said, later half you slowed down.
What I learned from the fight, first off, you can't take anything for granted. Can't take anything for granted. Um, Also, it was a situation of everybody questioned, did I look past him or anything like that? I said, no, not at all. I didn't look past him not one bit. Like, I went into that fight preparing for strictly him. Some people say, well, leading up to the fight, y'all were bringing up Brian Norman and stuff like that. I said, yeah, because, I was looking forward to those. Those were the type fights that I seen in the future, be that we had got past Jose Roman. And, it was a situation where we didn't do enough to win. I might have thought I won, but I'm not one of the judges. So what I thought or what my corner thought, it didn't matter. We didn't win over the judges, so we lost the fight. And as far as the future, after that fight, watching it again and everything like that, I don't think it was a stamina issue because I'm not sure if you've seen my fight with Peter Dobson, but my fight with
Yeah, I've
Pete
seen all your
Dobson,
fights.
if you go back and watch the fight with Pete, I don't know if you can tell, but I know I knew. In the seventh round, I was exhausted. I was done. I was like, man, shit. Even my dad knew because when I came back to the corner in one of the later rounds, he like, man, I don't know what you got to do, but you got to pick it up. Like you did all this good work in the early part of the fight. Don't give it away on the back half. And that him telling me that got me through that fight. But if you watch the fight with Roman, even all the way up to the 10th round. When I went out there in the 10th round, I went out there balls to the wall. Like I was trying to go get him. And I just don't feel like a fatigued fighter would have did that. So I don't think it was a case of fatigue. It was just, we didn't do enough to win the fight.
So you're a DC native training out of the Enigma Boxing Gym. Are you still out of that gym?
No, no,
Oh.
no, I'm not.
So that was the Russell's gym, right?
Yes, I from the time I got introduced to boxing. That's where I was training at. My early teens. We parted ways, and I just felt like I had to grow my own name because more often than not, it was, oh, that's one of the Russells, and it's nothing against that. That's one of those heavy as the head that wears the crown because they've done a lot in the sport of boxing to create their name. But I just wanted to create my own name. My last name is Hackett, so
For
I wanted
sure.
to you know, branch off and create my own thing in the boxing world.
It's crazy you said that, right? I'm gonna say it anyway because you kind of answered it by saying you wanted to create your own name. Because I was gonna say if you felt like some sort of uh, you know, I guess like if you owed them something to win in the name of Gary Russell Sr., being as though that he passed, but you made it clear, you separated from them to make a name for yourself. And I understand if you were being confused as one of the brothers. I mean, I'm sure it's a good thing in a way because they look at you as
Yeah,
a
and,
boxing
and
family, but you still
no,
want to be
absolutely.
yourself.
I just tell people don't get it confused in no way, shape, or form. Outside of boxing, that's like family. I tell people I've been around them all my life. They was around me longer than I knew I was around them. I tell people Antonio Russell taught me how to walk. Not walking in boxing, taught me how to put the left foot in front of the right foot. You know, I look at Gary Russell Sr., rest in peace his soul. I look at him as my grandfather. I came up around him all my life. That's where I developed my roots in the boxing world. But as far as like when it was time for me to make my own name, I felt like I didn't want to make it with them because I would just be looked at as another one of the Russells instead of Jalil Hackett.
Absolutely. If you could step into the ring with any boxing legend, past or present, for a dream fight or even a sparring session, who would it be, and how's Jalil Major Hackett come out on top?
It's two of them. It's two of them. Number one would be Marvin Hagler because I just like his mentality and I like how he fought. So I think like if we fought, that would be a dog fight. It'll be about who break first, and I don't plan on breaking. So the second one would be it would probably be Roy Jones. I just want to share the ring with Roy Jones. Even now, just to share the gym with Roy Jones would be nice because you and I both watched his career and it was a hell of a career.
So, having dealt with that first loss, obviously our topic, as I showed you in the link I sent you, is about Ryan. And, fans are calling him overrated. They're saying that he's washed. When Devin Haney just beat Jose Ramirez, they said, oh, Jose Ramirez is washed. How do you deal with fight fans writing you off after a loss?
I look at it as they writing you off, but it don't mean nothing because they can't spell, so people can't understand them writing you off. I just try and block out the noise, and focus on the task at hand. Because at the end of the day, you the one that got to get in the ring. You the one that got to get hit in the face. They not getting hit, so they can say whatever they want. Um, it's all about what you do in that ring. You can sway their opinion or not sway their opinion by your actions in the ring.
Before that loss, obviously, it seemed like you were on a collision course with Devin Haney. You and your father were doing interviews. You were getting the attention of Bill. There was a back and forth. Now Devin is officially at 147. Is that a fight you still want, or does that also go to the back burner till you decide the division you're campaigning at?
It's another one of those things that honestly it goes to the back burner. We still trying to figure out what the next step is. So until we figure out the next step, we don't know who's next.
And do you have a nutritionist? Have you ever used a nutritionist throughout the entire camp, or has that not been one of those stones that you turned over just yet?
It's a stone that hasn't been turned over yet. We've looked into it, but it's one of those things that haven't been looked into deep enough yet.
For sure, for sure. I got a couple questions from the people, and then we will get you out of here. First one is coming from the best dad ever. Some of these guys believe you weren't hurt when your last fight was canceled. They blamed it on your weight. What's the real truth? You kind of touched on that. I don't know if you want to add to it. Anything that anyone asks you that we already talked about, if you answered it, you don't have to,
No,
revisit it.
hey, he took his time to type it, so I'm gonna take my time to answer it. Like I said, going into the sauna that day, I was a pound over. I never disclosed the weight, but before we went to the sauna, I was 148 and a half. So it's one of those things where it's like it was a freak accident, and if I can undo it, I guess maybe we don't go in the sauna the day before. We don't we don't fall. You could have fell running. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. The only way you can prevent anything from happening is after the press conference. We go back to the room and I sit in a plastic bubble until the weigh-in. Like
Plastic bubble.
certain things are inevitable.
For sure, for sure. We got Rod in LA. Why aren't you on the June 14th card, Hitchens versus Cambosis?
That's something that we have to talk over with the team. We still figuring shit out. You know, yeah,
So in
that's just
terms of
that's the best way I can put it.
rehabilitation, you're completely healed though. You are fight cleared by a doctor?
Yes, yes, yes. I was cleared a little bit over a month ago.
Oh, that's great. You back sparring yet, and how you feeling?
I'm back sparring. I'm feeling good. At first, it was people hesitant about me doing full on activity. Even after I was cleared, they were real hesitant about it because I think 2 or 3 days before I was cleared, my inflammation in my ankle had just went down. And I was just letting them know, like, despite it still looking swollen, I was telling them, like, I feel good. I had been walking consistently. I had started to ride the bike consistently, and even before I was cleared, like the day before I was cleared, I even asked. I was like, why not try and run to see if I can really work? And they was like, no, we're gonna wait till you're cleared by an actual doctor. And the same day I was cleared, I went on a run, and I didn't feel bad at all. Um, I guess it might have hurt a little from not running for a while, but it didn't hurt to the point where it's like, I can't walk on it. And as of today, it doesn't hurt.
All right. Next one is from Ruin in 504 New Orleans. Should a fighter be in the sauna during fight week?
It depends on how. I honestly base that on. It depends on how your camp run things. You know, us. The week of, we try and do very low impact things, and the sauna is a form of a low impact workout. Because you're getting the sweat in without doing too much physically, too much physical movement, too much physical work. Exerting energy that you're gonna need on fight night.
All right. Next one is from Octo. Yo, champ, what's your favorite music artist? And give us one good movie we should watch.
All right, my favorite music artist right now, he got something brewing, is my brother Robbie Rob. My go-to song for him is he got a song. It's on Apple Music. It's on YouTube. It's on all platforms. It's called Uncensored. Because it's one of those songs. It don't got no hook. I like songs with no hooks that's just rapping straight through. Yeah, it's one of those songs that he just was flowing on that joint. And he ain't rapping about, he ain't on the YN music. He ain't spinning. He ain't doing all the dumbass shit. He just rapping. He spitting. And what was the second half of that question?
One good movie we should watch.
One good movie. My go-to movie, if I don't know what to watch and I just have to watch a movie that's timeless, probably Friday. Friday is a timeless movie. I could watch that movie 100 times. I'm gonna laugh every time.
For sure, for sure. That's definitely one we could watch. Next one is Devin Sanchez. Jose Roman makes 147 well, and he was noticeably bigger than you. Try and make 147. This division is underwhelming, and you can become a champ. 154 is full of vets and even young guys. I don't think you're ready for the Virgil and the Zayas.
That's one of those situations where only time will tell. If we move up and we beat those guys, then it's like, you were wrong. We move up, we lose to those guys, you were right. But we don't know until later on down the line when we make our moves and everything happens.
I got El Consejero in Washington State. He says, Jalil, appreciate your time. How do you take care of your mental health, especially before a fight?
Um, that's one of those things where, I take time after the fights. Like in between fights when we taking those slight breaks. I just I sit down. I try and be around family. Um, I've actually seeked out a therapist. I see a therapist now. So yeah, it's just all about getting professional help and doing things that you like. I like being around my family, so I be around family, and I just I seek the professional help that I need to make sure I'm cool.
So I'm only bringing this up because Tank did that. I think it was an interview with Little Yachty where he said that he wants to retire because he wants to do therapy, but he'd rather not be in the game because he feels like he'll lose that aggression. Do you obviously you doing both. You still boxing and doing therapy, so I'm assuming you don't think you lose that competitive edge, that killer instinct that Tank was talking about?
No, I don't think you'll lose that. Certain things are stuck with you. We come from similar environments, so it's certain things that he's never is 100 years of therapy, he's not gonna forget it. And I just feel like therapy will not take away from my ability to perform in the ring.
For sure. Next one is from Malcolm in New York. He says, you graduated high school with a 3.5 GPA, but I think he's wrong. Wasn't it 3.7?
It was a 7. It
Yeah,
was
man.
a
Get
7.
that
I
get
need
that
my
right,
point. I need
Malcolm.
my point too. I
Yeah,
need my
we need
point
them
too.
2 points, man. That ain't every day. So he graduated with 3.7 GPA. Besides boxing, was there a career you thought of pursuing in college?
Um, in the event that I went to college straight out of high school, I would have majored in journalism because I still love sports. I could talk sports with you all day, not even just boxing. Football, basketball, etc. Um, I would have went to school for journalism, and I would have wanted to become a writer for like ESPN or something like that, or even become an anchor. You know, yeah, that's one of those things that I looked into, and I still look into it. And it wouldn't be hard. In high school, I had a quarter worth of credits. I didn't have a whole first half of college school year, but I had a quarter worth of credits. So going back wouldn't be nothing.
All right, I got Donald in Baton Rouge. What fight made you get better?
Um, my first 10 rounder, Pete Dobson. Me and Pete, we talk often, and I always let him know like I appreciate him for helping me develop into a better fighter because that was my first 10 rounder. It was one of my biggest fights, and he came to fight. So it really made me prepare not only for the physical aspect of it, but the mental aspect of it too. Leading up to the fight, he had something to say damn near every other day. So yeah, no, I really, yeah, that was the one right there.
Nah, that was a great fight. Like I said, we didn't expect that Roman fight, and that fight was such a big step up. You beat a guy probably easier than Conor Ben, who we thought was ready for a title shot, and you know look at what he did with Chris Eubank. He lost in that fight, but he won in that fight as a loss. People still loved his performance. So yeah, that was a big win for you, man.
No, absolutely.
I got Mox Zilla. Bart from Texas says, "What up, champ? How do you keep yourself calm during a fight? Any tricks? Thank you and good luck."
Um, I feel like it's one of those things that you develop over time. Your first time doing anything, you're gonna be nervous. Your first time driving, you was probably nervous, but after you drive for like a year, you drive cool. It's a few events. You might have a few scares here and there, but for the most part, you chilling, you good.
Absolutely. We got Alex Vega, Palm Beach, South Florida. What is one piece of advice you received early on your boxing career that still sticks with you today?
One piece of advice that I received early is the same people that got you here, those are people that you need to keep around because they genuine. You know, they were here when it was nothing. So in the event that it becomes something, just keep those people around.
I got Ali and Dago that says, "What's up, Mr. Hackett? Who are your top three favorite fighters of all time?"
Top three, no order. We got James Toney, we got Marvin Hagler, and we got Roy Jones.
Nice. I got Spizzle. He says, "What up, G? Congrats on your success so far. What made you think you could beat Devin Haney? Was it how you performed in sparring or a fight? How do you keep such confidence?"
I know what I bring to the table. I know what he brings to the table, and I feel like in a 12-round fight, I will beat him. I don't think it will go 12. I'm just being realistic with myself. In the event that the fight goes 12, he wins a boxing match. But I don't see the fight going 12.
Bucky Rogers from Delaware, salute, Major. With all the new faces coming up to 147, it's a lot of potential big money fights. How long you look to stay at 147? Just from the outside looking in, 147 just might take too much to make. What's your plan? Keep being great and you'll have a bright future. You've already answered that. Y'all haven't made a decision. You've answered it three separate different ways, so we could get to the next one. I just wanted to make sure we read his question, unless you want to add anything else.
Yeah, no, like you said, we answered it a few times, and
Yeah.
I just want to let him know I appreciate you for stopping through. You came through, you showed love, you had a question. I'm not sure if you were here for the answer, but right now we weighing our options. We weighing our options at 47. We're weighing our options at 54, and we'll have an answer for you guys soon.
Next one is what's going on, Jay? This is Coach Anthony out of North Carolina. A lot of people support you here. So, excuse me, support you in the Winston-Salem and Greensboro area heavy. Really, the entire state. Do you have any family ties to North Carolina, champ?
Um, yeah, I have family all down the East Coast. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. You know, so it's one of those things where like you never know. You'll run into anybody anywhere. I tell people a hilarious situation. I didn't find out Jahan Ingram and I were cousins until about 3 years ago. I
Yeah,
found out
he's
we
from
were
North
cousins.
Carolina.
Yeah, one of our cousins is like somebody that I've known for a while, and it's somebody that he's also known for a while. And we put two and two together, and we found out we were related.
For sure. Quest in Virginia. What's up, champ? Blind rank these boxers. So it's 5 boxers, five
All right, there we go.
positions.
Come on.
Brian
Are they
Norman.
all in the? Hold on, before you say this, are they all in the same division or like how is this?
Uh, he don't want me to tell you, but no,
All
one
right,
is
cool,
not.
cool, cool. All right,
New
cool. Let's
text
go.
message from Jessica Mason Mom TTY.
All right,
Uh,
Brian Norman. I put him at 3.
Boots,
1.
Devin,
4.
Blair the Flair,
5.
Tank.
2.
Good one, good one. I got AB 2 times from Colorado. Champ, what's your favorite boxing workout? Bag work, mitts, sparring, and let me guess, it's sparring.
Yeah, it's definitely sparring. I like how James Tony used to look at boxing. He did an interview and he told the guy that was interviewing him. He said when I used to get ready for fights, I only used to spar and ride the bike. He said
Hmm.
that's how I used to get ready for my fights. And I look at it. I don't really do the bike that much, but as far as sparring, what better way to get in shape for a fight than practice fighting?
Word. James Benitez in Atlanta. He says, respectfully, bro, I said before, y'all DC ninjas ain't fooling with us down here in Atlanta. Norman becoming the real king of the South. Stay tuned. I promise. It's a movie occurring down here. So get you some popcorn ready. I guess he
Hey,
I guess he's a Brian Norman fan.
hey, man, shit. Brian Norman, a hell of a fighter. Motherfucking world champion, too. I got much respect for him and his pops. They doing their thing. And, yeah, no, he a hell of a fighter. DC, we got fighters up here. And I just tell people, once upon a time, DC had 5 champions at once. So, the not only just DC, but like our whole metropolitan area. I don't really like to refer to it as the DMV, but like, I just look at it as DC and the surrounding areas, the immediate surrounding areas. We have a lot of talent here.
For sure. Tip Bellis, no, excuse me. Major Media says, do you think the judges in Puerto Rico were biased in their decision for your last fight?
Um, no, no. Everybody has their own opinion on things. A lot of my fans say, we feel like you got that fight. Da da da. But if you beat a guy, if you dominate a guy, if you're expected to dominate a guy, and you only just win, or you only look good enough to get the decision, I don't think you deserve to win.
Got it, got it. Uh, Tip Bellis, what's something Floyd taught you that sticks to this day?
Um, with hard work, you're gonna be able to do almost anything. But you got to put the work in. Um, I know around the time, like right before I left Mayweather Promotions, he and I did a workout together, and I can honestly say That dude work out like he got a world title fight coming up at his age.
So you've never trained with someone that trains as hard as him? Because that's kind of like what all boxers say. They ain't never seen nobody train like Floyd.
Nobody trained like Floyd. And I done worked with a lot of fighters. Nobody trained like Floyd. Like Grandpa Floyd, like old man Floyd, nobody trained like him.
Damn. I got Talk Trans. He says, you and Devin, why the beef?
It was really a situation where, like, it wasn't really beef. We boxers. If you got something to say about me and I felt a certain way about what you said about me, nigga, let's fight. This is what we do for a living. So it was a situation where, like, either we fight or you shut the fuck up. That's really all it was.
Hey, gotta respect that. Jalil, that was the last question. We do appreciate you, man. Thank you for getting on. The minute you figure out what's the next move, whether that's welterweight or 54, or Matchroom gives you a call with an opponent, DM me, man, so we can schedule you back and let the world know what's cooking.
No, absolutely. I appreciate you for having me on your platform. Everybody that came through and showed love, I appreciate y'all. If you came through to talk shit, I appreciate you too. Because you came through, you spent your time to talk to me. So, I appreciate that. Everybody who's keeping up with me, we're going to have some big news for you guys soon. And, once again, I thank you.
Nah, thank you, man, for coming on. We appreciate you, taking out the time and, giving us an opportunity.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Jalil Major Hackett, another one. Phone lines